She really thought everything would shift when she left Tom, her first husband. Tom was a solid guy, smart, kind, a great dad, passionate in bed, respectful in every way. But somewhere along the line, he just turned dull. Not by choice, life just wore him down. 3 kids, mortgage, grocery bills, fixing the roof, cutting grass, PTA meetings, and his job, high school band director. That alone ate up nights and weekends, concerts, rehearsals, school trips, dances. For years, he was barely home, 25 years she gave him. She loved him through it all, from the wild, magnetic rocker with his electric guitar and tangled curls to the quiet man in slacks and a button-up, humming Brahms as he cleaned the gutters. Back when they met, he had a look, a presence. Cool without trying. Not trendy, timeless. Even in the fashion wasteland of the 70s, he stood out. Tom wasn't into disco or top 40 garbage. He lived for jazz and classical, with a soft spot for old-school rock. He dressed the same way he listened to music. Refined, but bold. He took care of himself. Ran every morning, lifted most nights. That first hug knocked the breath right out of her. Even years later, with her body a little softer and his hair a little grayer, his arms still made her feel small in the best way. And his face, God, she used to love his face. The way he blushed when she teased him, that thick, wavy hair. The sharp blue eyes that lit up when he talked about literally anything. Politics, religion, basketball. The man was fire in human form. She just knew he'd love with that same intensity, and he did. She first saw him playing lead guitar with his college orchestra at Springfest. He was electric, singing, playing, moving like the music ran through his veins. When he soloed, it was sensual, like he was dancing with the guitar. You could feel it in your chest. Everyone wanted him. She just wanted to say hi, but after the set, he vanished, swallowed up by fans, mostly women. She tried to get close, but the band always disappeared before she got the nerve. Now, years later, she took a sip of her rum and coke, letting the memory play out. Herb, her current boyfriend, gave her hand a squeeze, snapping her back. The waiter was staring, waiting on her order. She didn't need a menu. Monty's had always been her spot. She rattled off her usual. Herb started interrogating the waiter about every item on the menu, so she slipped back into her thoughts. Monty's was where she really met Tom. She was sitting at the bar alone. Friends had ditched her, sick of hearing about that guitar guy. She didn't even notice the man beside her until the bartender asked, "You guys playing tonight?" Tom answered, "Nah, just me. Doing a solo thing." She turned. And there he was. The real-life version of every fantasy she'd had for a year. "I'm Tom," he said. "I know," she blurted out. "I've wanted to meet you forever," he smiled. "Guess I've got a fan." She cringed. "Your biggest." Looking back, she winced at how cheesy it sounded. But he didn't seem to mind. They chatted like old friends, shared dinner, and he played a short set. Afterward, he walked her home, gave her a real kiss on the cheek, and called the next day. "Come hear me play Friday," he said. She melted. She already knew she loved him, just like that. "Lost in thought?" Herb chuckled across the table. She gave a soft laugh. "Just daydreaming." Herb was sweet, safe, a decent man, but he wasn't Tom. No one after the divorce ever came close. What Tom didn't tell her was that Friday's show wasn't with the band. He gave her a ticket, treated her to dessert, kissed her hand, and sent her on her way. She walked into Symphony Hall confused. This didn't feel like a rock show. Then he stepped out in a tux with a trumpet. And in that moment, she saw a new version of him. The performer she'd worshipped wasn't gone, just evolved. Now he stood center stage with a world-class orchestra, blowing the roof off the hall with pure skill and soul. From that night on, they were inseparable. He was finishing music school and working symphony gigs. She was studying to be a teacher. They spent more time in each other's beds than their classrooms. By year's end, they were married. "How's the fish?" Herb asked, pulling her out of the past once more. She smiled, pushing the memory away. "It's perfect." She really needed to stop thinking about Tom. It wasn't fair to Herb. They'd been divorced 6 months already. Time to move forward. That had been the whole point. Leaving Tom, trying to feel something again, something exciting, something alive. Herb was talking, but she couldn't keep the rhythm. She smiled and nodded, pretending to listen, while her mind slipped into old memories, those early years with Tom. Back when making it as a trumpet player in a symphony felt like climbing Everest. He nailed a few auditions, sure, but They were temp gigs, nothing permanent. So every season he was back at square one, reapplying, trying to stay afloat. The first 6 years of their marriage were just gig after gig, barely scraping by. 3 of those years, he was basically unemployed. She tried to steer him toward something steadier, and in year 7, he caved, took a job teaching high school music. It paid all right, decent health insurance. He still played guitar in clubs on the weekends, still did trumpet gigs when he could. But slowly music became less about art and more about income. Their daughter came during his second year teaching. That changed everything. She wanted him home more, so he gave up the band. Then the trumpet gigs. Eventually, he just didn't have the time or lips for symphony work anymore. His tux stayed sealed in plastic. His stylish clothes got replaced by cheap suits she picked out during back-to-school sales. He sold the van, bought a fuel-saver hatchback. Never complained. He did what he had to. For her, for the baby. Then came the 2 boys. With 3 kids, they moved to a small house out in the suburbs. She wanted the whole postcard image, white picket fence and all. He worked his A off, built that school orchestra into one of the best in the state. Still ran, though now more for stress than fitness. Played his acoustic guitar late at night, quietly. His electric stuff? Stored away in the basement next to that unused tuxedo. The dream they chased became a routine they couldn't escape. She looked down at her plate, half smiling. Herb was sweet, but she kept thinking of Tom. Tom, who carried all the bags on beach trips. Tom, who always opened doors, who always held her hand. He'd been right there beside her through every birth, every scare. Never flinched, never missed a moment. Tom, who'd rather spend 3 hours cooking some ridiculous over-the-top dinner than just throw burgers on the grill. She chuckled quietly. Who cooks like that? She muttered. He gave up skiing because she said it was too expensive with kids growing out of boots every year. Gave up new clothes so she and the kids could have nice ones. No wonder his wardrobe looked tired. No wonder he started to blend in. She pushed her food around the plate, smiling now and then so Herb wouldn't catch on. Across the room, the orchestra was tuning up. She already knew Herb would want to dance all night. Funny. Tom loved dancing too. Even took lessons with her before their cruise, just so they could dance together on the ship. She loved that. Then the next summer, she hurt her leg, and when he still wanted to keep dancing, she felt annoyed. He was disappointed she stopped going, and it lingered. The kids got older. Schedules filled with practices, rehearsals, recitals. He became the designated driver. She ran the house like a general. By the time the kids were in middle school, she needed more. She joined a book club, a bridge group, started volunteering. Then she started dating. Writers, lawyers, doctors, even one of her bridge partner's husbands. Compared to Tom, they all seemed more exciting. Tom, the tired-looking band teacher in his faded blazer. Somewhere along the line, she stopped looking at him the same way. The Zex faded. She knew he noticed. She felt guilty, but not enough to stop. She wanted more than bake sales and carpool. The drift was slow, but steady. The kids moved out. They still lived under the same roof, but it wasn't a marriage anymore. She stopped wondering where he went in the mornings. Didn't ask, didn't care. He was home every night like clockwork, still quietly dependable, still doing everything. But the magic was gone. And the world outside? So full of handsome, interesting men. Men who looked at her like she was still something special. She didn't cheat. She took pride in that. But she also knew she'd stopped being a wife. Tom spent his time teaching, tinkering in the basement, or off on those quiet morning escapes. When she finally told him she wanted out, he didn't fight her. I just need more, she said. This life, it's too dull. She was done with the fence, done with the minivan, done with his job, his suits, his patience. And he let her go. Told her he wanted her to be happy, even if it wasn't with him. He gave her the house, kept his pension. She made enough to skip child support. He took only his clothes and the old family furniture. She knew he had every right to the jewelry, but it still broke her heart to give it back. The ring he gave her for their 15th, designed to match her wedding band. It had his grandmother's diamonds. He'd bought the wedding rings with money from his grandfather's will. When he asked for them, she cried. But she returned them all. Nothing really changed after that. Except he wasn't there anymore. The house felt hollow without him, and without the kids. But over time, she got used to it. She moved her bed into the downstairs office and basically stopped going upstairs. Kept the old minivan even though it was falling apart and cost a fortune to fix. That winter, when the snow piled up, she stood at the front door and muttered, "Tom used to handle this." She had never so much as touched a snow shovel. Maybe I'll pay that neighbor kid, she thought. She reminded herself to hire someone for the lawn in summer. She started dating again. Dan took her skiing. Big mistake. He sucked. And the entire time she was on that mountain, all she could think about was Tom. How he used to teach her to ski. How graceful he looked, flying down the steepest slopes like it was nothing. She sighed. That guy over there, bombing down the hill, moved just like him. And there she was, stuck at the bottom, waiting on George to dig himself out of a snowbank. Then she spotted the guy again later, loading skis into a shiny new SUV. It could have been Tom. She never caught up to him. George was another one. Took her to the symphony. Dinner was nice. Conversation was decent. "I'm a huge fan of late romantic composers," he said, trying to impress her. "They really stretched the limits of what music could express." Then he added, "Tonight's piece has offstage brass, set up in different corners of the concert hall. It's going to be epic." And sure, dinner was tasty. The music was stunning. She actually started to think George might be worth another shot, until halfway through the second movement, the guy passed out cold in his seat, snored so loud the usher came over and kicked them both out. Now she was sitting in a coffee shop next door, George sipping an espresso called "Wake Me Up to Take Me Home" while she flipped through the concert program she'd missed. Then she saw it. Tom's name. He was one of the offstage trumpet players. She realized with a jolt that was him, outside. He'd walked right by her just minutes ago, and damn, he looked sharp in a tux. "Want to dance?" Herb asked, guiding her back to their table. "Sure, Herbie," she said with a fake smile. "Let's dance." "Sorry, I've been kinda out of it tonight." "Dance is what you need," he grinned. So they danced, but her mind drifted again, this time to Alan, her coworker. He'd been trying to cook her dinner for weeks. She finally said yes. The wine was good. The music? Smooth jazz. Exactly her vibe. Tom had gotten her into jazz, especially Coltrane's slow stuff. He used to talk about it like it was holy scripture, or just hold her hand and let the music speak for itself. Alan made chicken marsala. Nobody, and she meant nobody, made chicken marsala like Tom. Herb stepped on her foot. She winced. Tom never stepped on her foot. And if she stepped on his, he'd cover it up so smooth no one would notice. "What is wrong with me?" she thought. "I walked away from this man because he was boring. And now I can't go a damn day without thinking about him. And now even the singer sounds like him." She danced a couple of more songs with Herb, who, to be fair, was a great dancer, minus the bruised toe. Still, something felt off. Like maybe she was the one who messed up. Maybe she was the one hurting now. The idea burned hard, because it wasn't just about missing Tom. It was realizing she'd been the one stepping all over him for years. Then she heard it. His voice. Not just someone like him, it was him. Singing, playing guitar, alone on stage. "You said I still have a lot to learn." She froze. That was their song, one of those old jazz standards he loved. He used to hum it after they argued instead of saying sorry. That was how he apologized. She used to find it sweet, intimate. "Please don't think I'm trying not to study." Her stomach dropped. She knew that sound. The chords, the phrasing. That was his sound. His hands on guitar strings, his voice soft but steady. "Since this is an ideal place to learn, teach me today." It was Tom. She hadn't even noticed him take the stage. Her fork still hovered in midair. Slowly, she turned around. Her eyes locked on him. He looked good. Crisp white button-down, forest green tee underneath, worn-in jeans, olive corduroy jacket. Effortlessly stylish. That man could make jeans look like a tux, and if he was in a tux, game over. He'd been running again, clearly. His body looked strong, lean and solid, just like the day he first hugged her and made her legs turn to jelly. That same electricity pulsed from him now. "Help me find the secrets of love. God," she thought. "Come home to Mama. I've still got so many secrets left to share." She didn't realize how much she missed him until that exact second, and she'd never wanted anyone more in her life. "Teach me today." She didn't hear Herb talking. didn't feel his tap on her shoulder. She didn't care. Her eyes were locked on Tom, her ex-husband, up there singing their song. Gorgeous lyrics, gorgeous voice, gorgeous man. It all came rushing back. The sky is a chalkboard above you. Tears filled her eyes. She had spent years mocking his job, forgetting how much he gave. He wasn't just a teacher. He was an artist, a leader, a father, a husband who gave everything he had. His students adored him. Her family adored him. She had once adored him. She dressed him in cheap suits while buying designer bags for herself, made him shrink while she shined. What a damn fool I was. If a shooting star flies past. The orchestra joined in. A swell of soft strings wrapped around his voice like a memory you didn't know you were still holding. Now she was crying. I'd use that star to write, I love you in the sky. 1,000 times. She felt a quiet movement behind her, Herb shifting in his seat. When she turned, he was already standing, slipping into his coat with that familiar quiet grace. No anger, no scene. He placed a folded $100 bill beside his wine glass and leaned in close, his breath warm on her cheek. I hope you find what you're looking for, he said softly. Maybe you can still get him back. Then he turned and walked out. She didn't follow. She couldn't. Her eyes were already drifting back to the stage, just in time to catch the lyric that always made her heart skip. Why does the teacher stand so close to the one I love? It hit her like a gut punch, a lyric she'd heard 100 times before, but never like this. Not live, not like that. She wasn't the only one moved. Every woman in the room was watching Tom like he was some rare, sacred thing. Their eyes weren't just admiring, they were hungry. A collective ache echoed silently from the rows of cocktail dresses and glossy lips. She'd seen that expression before, back in the smoky bars and college stages where he used to play. That look of desire that followed him wherever he went. And right now, she felt it too. It was primal, unfiltered, and crawling under her skin. Graduation's almost here, my love. That note, that effortless golden arc in his voice. It wasn't just beautiful, it was dangerous. It pulled something deep from her. Something raw and half-forgotten. She could barely breathe through the swell of heat and grief. She shifted in her seat, clenched her fists under the table. Something sharp and bitter started to burn behind her eyes. Who the hell do these women think they're looking at? He's mine. He was mine first. She wanted to scream at them, tear them apart, but something inside her cracked. Because she hadn't been pushed out. She had left. She'd walked away, filed the paperwork, signed the dotted line. She'd packed her things, made her case, and left him standing there. And Tom? He didn't stop her, didn't argue, didn't try to win her back. He just let her go. No fight, no fireworks. Just a quiet, devastating acceptance. Did he really not want her anymore? She hadn't changed that much, had she? Sure, her body had softened with time, but she had carried and raised 3 children. She'd stood by him through years of struggle. Wasn't that worth something? Then, a tall blonde saxophonist stepped onto the stage. Young, confident, slim, dressed in painted-on black pants that showed off long, lean legs, her stomach flat under a fitted blouse. She couldn't have been more than 22, the kind of woman Tom used to draw in like moths to fire. Her hair spilled down her back in a waterfall of gold. And when Tom looked at her, oh God, his eyes didn't just see her. They followed her. Something inside her snapped. That should be me. She had traded Tom in for what? Men who barely knew how to hold a conversation? Dinner dates? Who talked about stock options and made her feel invisible? Empty encounters that left her colder than before? It had been a year of nothing. 6 months since she'd left. Another 6 waiting for the divorce to finalize. And not once in all that time had anyone touched her the way Tom used to. With music, with hands, with silence. And now there he was, alive again. No, not alive. On fire. The saxophone solo rose in sultry waves, and Tom stepped into it like he was born there, his voice sliding into hers, melting together in a duet that felt more intimate than anything she'd felt in years. She watched them, 2 artists completely in sync. Their timing, their tone, the way they moved in rhythm. It was more than music. It was chemistry. It was sex without touch. Desire without a word spoken. And suddenly the air felt too thick to breathe. Her chest tightened. Her vision blurred. I can't be here. She pushed herself up from the table, nearly knocking over her wine glass, grabbed her coat, and rushed toward the lobby. At the counter, she asked for a cab, her voice flat and brittle. Her hands trembled. While she waited, she glanced toward the bulletin board. A promotional poster hung beside the entrance. Tom Jackson, headliner tonight. Through watery eyes, she read his name. It carved itself into her chest like a blade. The taxi ride home was a quiet humiliation. The driver looked at her face, red, streaked with tears, and didn't say a word. He just reached into the glove box and handed her a crumpled box of tissues. No small talk, no fake sympathy. It was, somehow, the kindest thing anyone had done for her in weeks. The house greeted her with a silence that felt suffocating. Rooms that once echoed with laughter, chaos, love, now hollow. She climbed the stairs like she was carrying the weight of the whole year on her back. Upstairs, she wandered room to room, touching forgotten toys, old blankets, dusty books the kids had once devoured. Despite her obsessive cleaning, everything smelled stale, untouched, as if the past had moved out and the future never moved in. The master bedroom was the worst. She sat on the edge of the bed and stared into the closet. Empty shelves, bare hangers, nothing left of him. But she could see it, like a ghost. Tuxedos lined up, dress shirts pressed to perfection, guitars leaning against an amp humming quietly into the night. She walked to the dresser and picked up one of his old cologne bottles. The label was peeling, the glass nearly dry. She sprayed it once, let the scent fill the air. It was him. She closed her eyes and drifted back. Ski trips, slow kisses, tangled limbs beneath flannel sheets, and the sick realization set in. She had asked him to stop being the man she fell in love with. She had told him to quit skiing, to trade his passions for paychecks. He had given up gigs, solo performances, creativity, all for her, for the kids, for stability. And he had done it without bitterness. With love. He never asked for anything in return. He'd quietly become the best damn high school band director in the state. The kind of guy students never forgot. He took care of everything. She barely noticed. He made driving a minivan look like driving a dream, and she left. Now the kids were adults, kind, successful, independent, and Tom, he was back. Music, confidence, laughter in his eyes, looking sharper than ever, probably driving some luxury SUV up to the mountains for a weekend of skiing with his new life. I bet he finally bought that Porsche, she thought bitterly, or that vintage Corvette he always used to talk about. She imagined him in a sleek, modern apartment, sipping wine while grilling chicken marsala on the patio for some young goddess with perfect skin and eyes that still sparkled with belief. She cried until exhaustion knocked her out. Morning came hard. She woke on the couch, neck stiff, head pounding. Outside, birds were chirping as if the world had moved on without her. How can anyone be this cheerful when I feel like hell? She stumbled to the window and shoved it open. Hey, shut the hell up, she shouted at the birds. Tea. She needed tea. She brewed a pot, strong and bitter, then grabbed the morning paper from the porch and tossed it onto the kitchen table. She wasn't planning to read it until her eyes caught the front page. A photo, Tom, and the saxophonist. Her stomach twisted so hard she thought she might throw up. Then she saw the headline. Tom Jackson and alumni raise funds for flood sufferers in Adams County. She froze. Read it again. Then again. The tears didn't come this time. Just a hollow ache that settled deep in her chest. The article covered a benefit concert. A massive 3-day fundraiser Tom had organized with his former students to help families still reeling from the floods. Over $165,000 raised. Kids working the donation tables. Local businesses stepping up with supplies. It was the kind of story that made people believe in humanity again. And the blonde saxophonist? That was Sarah Davis, a Grammy-winning artist who'd hit pause on her album production just to fly in from New York for the show. She called Tom her favorite teacher of all time, and the reason she didn't quit music as a kid. I adore this man, she'd said in the interview. Back then, my family was struggling. He believed in me when I couldn't even look people in the eye. If my sax can give back even half of what he gave me, I'll play for him anytime, anywhere. The article didn't flirt with drama. No scandal, no hidden romance, just love. Real love. The kind you give to someone who changed your life. It wasn't lust. It wasn't a fling. It was loyalty, admiration, deep, soul-level respect. And Tom? The photo told the rest. He wasn't staring at her with longing. He was beaming with pride. That was the look. The same look he used to wear when their kids brought home finger paintings and spelling bees. A strange mix of emotions settled over her, somewhere between shame and relief. She sipped the last of her tea, stood up, and walked slowly upstairs. She hadn't used the master bathroom since he moved out. It felt like sacred ground. Today, though, she turned on the light, stepped inside, and closed the door behind her. She undressed slowly and let the hot water hit her skin, rolling down her back like forgiveness. She stood there until the steam erased everything. Regret, pride, noise. Afterward, wrapped in a thick robe, towel drying her hair, she was brushing through the tangles when the doorbell rang. She padded downstairs barefoot, opened the door, and froze. Tom stood there. "Hey," he said gently. Calm, steady. He looked good. Jeans, soft button-down, brown leather jacket. The scent hit her immediately. Familiar cologne mixed with worn leather and cool air. It was the same cologne she'd sprayed last night, desperate to feel close to him. "Hi, Tom," she whispered, trying not to shake. "I was just getting dressed. Do you want to come in?" He nodded. "Yeah, thank you." She stepped aside. He walked past her into the foyer like he still knew where everything was, like time had just taken a break. "I saw you," he said, "last night at the show, and then I saw you leave." His voice softened. "You looked upset. Are you all right?" She gave a small nod. But her face told the truth. He always knew her face. "Was it Herb?" Tom asked, stepping closer. "I saw him leave early. Looked like he tossed money on the table and walked out." He hesitated. "I know it's not really my place, but I still care about you, and if he hurt you, I swear." Her eyes welled. He misread it. His tone sharpened. "If he did something, if he touched you, or said anything cruel, I swear to God I'll—" "Tom!" she interrupted, voice trembling. "You don't deserve that." He pushed forward, jaw clenched. "You deserve peace. You deserve better than some guy who—" "It wasn't Herb," she said softly, stopping him cold. The air shifted, and then suddenly, quietly, he said it. "I still love you." The room spun. That sentence hit like thunder. Everything inside her stopped. He took a breath, slowed. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know it's messy, but I never stopped loving you, even after everything." She managed to breathe again. "Herb's harmless," she said gently. "He's always been respectful. I think he knows I'm not really into it, but he keeps showing up, hoping I'll change my mind." Tom gave a lopsided smile. "The ocean's full of fish?" "Yeah," she said, "but I keep throwing them back." That made him laugh, really laugh. For a second, it felt like no time had passed. "I've been there," he said, smirking. Her smile faded, worried. "Tom, I didn't mean it like that. You're not a fish I threw back. I didn't mean, God, you look great, you really do. And the song last night, it wrecked me. In a good way." He shrugged, little shy. "I didn't know you'd be there. I probably wouldn't have invited Sarah if I had. That was awkward." "No," she said quickly. "Don't say that. It was beautiful. That song, it brought back so much. It was everything." He looked at her. Quietly, he said, "You wasted a lot of time." "I did," she whispered. "Guilty as charged." "No," he said. "It gave us memories, and it gave me time to forgive and feel and remember why I loved you in the first place." There was a pause. She looked him in the eyes. "Do you remember why I left?" He nodded. "Yeah, you said I was boring, safe, predictable, minivan guy." "No," she said, "you weren't boring. I made you boring. I asked you to put down your guitar, to hang up your tux. I pushed you out of the concert halls and into a public school classroom. And you did it. For me. For the kids. For the life I said I wanted." Her voice cracked. "And after all that, I had the audacity to tell you I was bored." She stared at the floor. "I stripped away everything that made you shine, then punished you for being dim. And meanwhile, you were raising our children, paying the bills, driving the minivan, doing school concerts, and teaching kids how to chase their dreams. And all I saw were my friends' husbands with new suits and big job titles." She laughed bitterly. And then I started dating, and every guy was a disaster. One snored through an opera. One couldn't ski without falling on me. One thought jazz was a brand of coffee. None of them could cook, and not one of them, not one, could touch me the way you did. She started to cry again. I live in that house now, alone, with all the ghosts, yours, the kids. I don't cook anymore. I can't stand the silence. I eat out just so I don't have to look at your empty chair. I can't afford to hire someone to plow the driveway, so I shovel it myself. Then I come in aching and there's no one to warm me up. No cocoa, no strong hands on my back. I'm going to have to mow the damn lawn myself this summer. She looked at him, tears sliding freely down her cheeks. And Tom, no one compares to you, no one. I realized it too late, but it's the truth. You walked out of my life quietly, and now I sit there every night trying to breathe in the cologne you left behind. And then, last night, you came back. You walked into that room like the man I first fell for, music in your soul, trumpet in your hand, magic in your voice. Her voice broke completely now. You don't owe me anything. You have every right to be done with me. But if you have even a sliver of love left, if you're still that man, I'm begging you, come home. Be my boring husband again. Bore me forever. She stepped forward, barely breathing. I was wrong to walk out. I was wrong to look away. Please, Tom, just say something. Tom lifted his hand gently, signaling her to stop. Hey, this is a lot, he said softly. I wasn't expecting any of this today, but the truth? He paused, voice tight with something halfway between pain and hope. I never stopped loving you. That's the part that never changed. He glanced away, then back. I waited, for months. I kept hoping you'd call, that we'd sit down, talk it through. But you left everything to the lawyers. You never even looked me in the eye and said goodbye. Still, I always had a feeling you'd come back one day. You really waited for me? She asked, barely believing it. He nodded. Yeah, I told myself that once the kids were grown, once they were steady on their feet, I'd finally go back to what mattered. Not the job, not the noise, but the things I loved. Raising our family. That was the best thing I ever did. Nothing glamorous, just real. Then he gave her that familiar half smile. Now it's my turn to breathe a little. Retired from the school. No more PTA meetings or late-night lesson plans, and honestly, I don't feel old. I feel alive again. I've been skiing a lot this winter. Took a trip to the Alps over Christmas. Her breath caught. The Alps. That had always been her dream vacation, the one they never managed to take together. He continued casually, like he didn't just blow her mind. I picked up a new SUV, makes getting to the slopes easier. Even got a mountain condo in Stowe, she blinked. You bought a place in Stowe? Yep, he said, grinning. And I figured the SUV would also help in the summer. Yacht season. Wait, yacht? Relax, he laughed. It's not a mega yacht. Just a modest one. But the condo has its own slip, so I can see it right from my living room. Her jaw dropped. He looked at her knowingly. You always loved the water. I never forgot. She was speechless. And hey, come visit sometime, he said, tone light. Big kitchen, open living room, bay view. 3 bedrooms upstairs, one with a terrace. Top unit, so I can play trumpet at midnight and no one complains. Garage fits the SUV in my car. She narrowed her eyes. Let me guess. You finally bought the Porsche. Tom chuckled. Guilty! Couldn't resist. But I also picked up a little hybrid for everyday driving. Keep the Porsche for fun. Oh, and I may have picked up an antique or two. Cars? He nodded. Remember I used to say I wanted a car as old as me? I found it. You drove it here? Sure did. Want to take a ride? We could head up the coast, find lunch somewhere quiet? She didn't hesitate. Yeah? I'd really like that. They walked outside, and there it was. A '59 Corvette, candy apple red, white leather interior gleaming like it was built yesterday. The kind of car that made people stare, and he opened the door for her like they hadn't missed a beat. He treated her like nothing had changed, like there hadn't been years of silence between them. He listened, really listened, spoke gently, with no anger, no edge. They found a cozy little seafood place by the docks, ate out on the deck in the sun. He ordered chowder and swordfish just like he always used to. Same confidence, same warmth. Still the same Tom. Somehow more alive than ever. How did I ever think this man was boring, she wondered. After lunch, they drove to a park they used to hike in, walked the old logging road, the one with the overlook where the trees opened to reveal the wide blue stretch of Long Island Sound. The wind picked up and rustled the leaves, and she remembered how she used to love this place, because he had made it feel special. She looked at him, and she couldn't, for the life of her, remember why she'd ever left. He talked about his students, about the symphony, about the songs he'd written that were now being recorded by rising stars. He told her he'd used some of those music advances to pay off their debt before the divorce was finalized. She didn't know that. He'd never said a word. They talked until the sky darkened and the moon came out, and by the time they made it back to her house, she knew. She wanted him back, no doubt, no hesitation. He came inside for coffee. And for the first time in years, she made it for him. They sat at the kitchen table, mugs in hand, but she couldn't hold it in anymore. Everything spilled out, raw, real, fast. She told him how the breakup had wrecked her, how she'd spent every night trying to remember the sound of his laugh, how she never stopped loving him, but had been too proud to admit it until now. I haven't had a real relationship since, she said. Not one, no sex, barely even kissed anyone. I didn't want anyone else. They weren't you. Tom raised an eyebrow. Why are you telling me that? Because I want you to know I'm still yours. I never gave myself to anyone else. I couldn't. I didn't want to. He exhaled slowly. Okay, but if that matters to you, yeah, then you might not want me anymore. She stared at him. What do you mean? He met her gaze. I did wait for you. But once the divorce was final, I stopped waiting physically. I wasn't going to lie in bed alone every night hoping you'd call. I never cheated, but after it was over, yeah, I started dating. I started living again. He didn't flinch, just laid it out calmly. It was lonely. The silence sucked. I was craving closeness, real connection. And after years of being a husband and a dad and a teacher, I had this sudden freedom. And women noticed, at the gym, at school, at shows. And once I took off that ring, it was like a signal. He leaned back, looking at her kindly. At first, I thought it was just flirting. But then it wasn't. There were dinners, invites, parties. Some women made the first move. Some didn't even ask. He let the words settle. I didn't rush into anything serious. Still haven't. But I didn't spend the last year alone. And I'm not going to pretend I did. She didn't say anything. He gave her time. I wasn't looking to fall in love again. I wasn't over you, he added quietly. But I was done being miserable. I told myself that when you were ready, if you ever were, I'd be ready to talk. And here we are. She looked down and didn't say a word. She understood, and it stung like hell. She was the one who let him go. She had no right to feel betrayed, but still, a part of her had believed deep down that Tom would always be there, quietly waiting, still hers. That even after the lawyers, after the papers, after the slammed doors and silent nights, he'd still be her man in the end. But here he was, standing tall, rebuilt and renewed, living a life she hadn't imagined. And she realized something brutal. He wasn't waiting anymore. He'd taken his freedom and used it, fully. The man who used to be hers had stepped into a world she'd never let him explore while they were together. He had gone beyond her boundaries, and she had handed him the key. And something else hit her. Being with someone new doesn't always mean it's better. Sometimes it's just different. And different is exciting. Tom had tasted that excitement, and he hadn't hated it. She looked up at him, eyes clouded. How can you possibly still be excited about being with me again? He didn't flinch. His tone was calm, almost too calm. Look, he said, I'm not going to lie or sugarcoat anything. I'm not going to pretend this last year didn't happen. It did. I lived it, and I won't apologize for that. He paused, let it land. I care about you. I still love you, but I need stability now. If we're going to do this, try again. I need to protect myself. I'm not walking into this blind. His voice lowered, steady but firm. You cleaned me out during the divorce. I had to start from scratch. I was lucky to rebuild, to get my footing again. But if we ever split up a second time, I'm not risking everything, not again. He looked her dead in the eyes. That's the cost of you leaving the first time. She didn't respond. Couldn't. Her throat tightened, her chest ached. He stepped forward and kissed her softly on the forehead. Then he turned and walked out, each step echoing like a closing door. "I'll call you next weekend," he said, his back to her. "But just so you know, don't be surprised if you hear I've gone on a date. I'm not putting my life on pause anymore unless this becomes something real." And then he was gone. She stood there, rooted to the spot, hard in pieces. It wasn't just that she'd let him go. He had let her go too. She had walked away from a marriage that had been full of depth and devotion. For what? A little excitement? A glimpse of something new? And now here she was, fighting for the only man who had ever really known her. He called the next day. "Dinner on Saturday?" he asked. Like it was nothing, she said yes, then spent the entire week unraveling inside. Her thoughts spun out like a movie reel. Who is he seeing? Is she younger, prettier, more fun? She scrolled through memories like a detective, desperate to find the moment when she started losing him. He had been honest, not cruel, just real. She had walked away, convinced she needed more. Meanwhile, he'd been quietly becoming the kind of man every woman noticed. A man with presence, options, and she knew one thing for certain. She would do anything to win him back. Friday night, she went to happy hour with her coworkers. By now, word had spread. Everyone knew she was trying to get Tom back, and the usual crew of 3 had grown into a table full of supportive, wine-fueled women. They dissected everything. What she should wear, how she should act, what she should definitely not say. They buzzed with energy, spilling gossip and pouring confidence into her cup like a refill she didn't know she needed. "You've already got him," one friend declared. "He called you, didn't he? That's half the battle." They debated outfits, argued over shoes, discussed lipsticks like generals planning a war. But as the wine flowed, so did the truth. They talked about sex, chemistry, that magnetic thing that some couples just have. And for the first time, a voice inside her asked, "Why didn't he leave me first?" Her friends didn't hold back. "You dress like a librarian," one said. "Always flats, no edge, safe," another chimed in. "Girl, when's the last time you wore lingerie that wasn't cotton?" She laughed along with them. But it stung. She remembered the little things. How Tom used to kiss her neck, brush his fingers down her spine. All the times she brushed him off. The excuses, the exhaustion, the armor she wore to bed. Long flannel pajamas, full coverage underwear. She'd once joked they were mom gear, but now it just felt sad. He had tried, and she had shut the door. She and Carla were the last to leave the bar. And that's when she saw them. Tom, with her, his date was devastatingly attractive. Petite but fierce, wearing heels that said, "I know exactly what I'm doing." Long legs, confident posture, a curve-hugging skirt, perfect posture, effortless heat. She was a walking headline, and suddenly, all the little memories turned sharp. Every time her daughter had teased her for wearing grandma underwear. Every time Tom had reached for her and she'd rolled away. She looked down at her own reflection in the bar's dark window. Baggy sweater, safe flats, faded jeans. She'd stopped trying a long time ago, and the guilt hit hard and fast. Tears welled, spilled. Carla wrapped an arm around her before she could fall apart completely. Through broken sobs, she confessed everything. How she'd taken him for granted. How she never thought he'd really move on. How now she wasn't sure she could ever compete with the woman she used to be. Carla held her tighter. "Breathe," she whispered. "It's okay." But then Tom hit the dance floor, spinning his date around like he was 25 again, confident, effortless, that rhythm she used to love, that smile she used to live for. Her breath hitched. "Carla," she whispered, "I'm a B-movie, and he's starring in blockbusters now." Carla didn't even blink. "No, honey. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. You're mine. We're rewriting this entire damn script, and by tomorrow night, you'll be the Oscar-winning comeback of the year." Carla kept her promise. By 9 a.m., she had her in the salon, hair deep-conditioned, cut, and blown out to soft, glossy waves, every inch of skin exfoliated, lotioned, loved, brows shaped, nails painted in a sharp, elegant red. Lunch was served in a boutique dressing room where Carla picked out dresses like a stylist prepping a movie star. They returned home for the final step, Carla's masterclass. She brought out an ice cream cone, then a lollipop, then a banana. "Girl," she said, holding up the fruit like a microphone, "we're about to upgrade every part of you." She rolled her eyes and laughed, but followed every instruction, because tonight wasn't about looking good. It was about getting him back. And she wasn't walking in like a B movie. She was walking in like a woman who finally understood what she'd lost and exactly how to reclaim it. When Tom arrived, he reached for the handle, but paused, eyes catching a handwritten note taped to the front door. "Come on in." He raised an eyebrow, smiled to himself. From upstairs, her voice called down, light and casual. "Snacks are on the table!" She had, in her words, stacked the deck. She knew exactly what he liked: iced shrimp cocktail, his favorite Belgian beer chilled and waiting in a silver bucket. Simple, specific, intentional. Truth was, she wasn't as calm as she sounded. When she saw his car pull up, she'd bolted upstairs in a panic. It was all theater, an attempt to appear breezy, unbothered, composed. But let's be real. It felt like prom night. When she came down, she knew he noticed her. The little black dress fit just right, fitted but not tight. A little cleavage, a hem that flirted with the top of her knee, just enough to say, "I'm here," not, "I'm trying too hard." Around her neck, the pearls he'd bought her last Christmas. The matching earrings were an old anniversary gift. Her heels? 4 inches of subtle suggestion. "If you play this right, you might not leave tonight." He told her she looked incredible. Their hello kiss lingered a second too long. For a moment, she thought he might just walk her straight to the bedroom. And God, she wanted that. She'd missed him, his touch, his scent, the way he made her feel like no one else ever had. She was desperate to show him she still belonged to him, that she chose him now, intentionally, not by default. He looked amazing. He'd always looked amazing. No one wore a suit like Tom, not even now when he was older. Maybe especially now. How the hell did I ever let this man go? She thought. Dinner was flawless. He was present, truly present. She soaked it in. They went to a quiet Japanese place, low lighting, soft jazz. His tie matched his eyes, and when he smiled, it warmed something in her chest she thought had gone cold. Afterward, they slipped into a tiny jazz club where everyone seemed to know his name. He got pulled on stage for a couple of songs, and when he played, eyes locked on her, fingers smooth on the horn, it was like he was speaking to her body in a language only they knew. He was making love to her with music. Later, back at her porch, he kissed her again. Slower this time. She couldn't let him walk away. "Come in for coffee?" she asked. He smirked. "You know your coffee's barely drinkable, right?" She leaned in. "Yeah, but I make a hell of a breakfast." Another kiss. He stayed. The food was good. The night was better. She made sure he knew. She wasn't a consolation prize. She wasn't background noise. She wasn't the ex who faded into the past. She knew him better than anyone else ever could. She remembered what he liked, what she used to deny, what he'd silently wished for over the years. This time she gave him everything. No hesitation, no fear, just truth. She used every tool Carla had drilled into her. She touched him like a woman who'd memorized his map. She didn't hold back. She led. He followed. Then he led, and she followed. Over and over again. Morning blurred into afternoon. When he eventually sat at the edge of the bed, pulling on his socks, she reached for his hand. "I need to say something," she said quietly. He looked at her, not speaking. "I took the coward's way out," she said. "Instead of trying to fix things, I walked. Instead of bringing fire back into our marriage, I blamed the cold, and I was wrong." She swallowed hard. "No one compares to you. I tried to convince myself I needed more, but all I really needed was to wake up." Tears hovered. "There were moments I thought about sleeping with someone else. I thought maybe it'd give me some kind of power, but I couldn't go through with it. I didn't want them. I only wanted us. I never stopped loving you." She met his eyes. "Tom, if tonight was the last time I ever see you, I'll still remember it as the best night of my life, the night you came back. If you ever need dinner, a dance, a getaway, or just a wild night where I love you until you can't think, I'm here. Occasionally, regularly, or forever." He stayed quiet. She steadied herself. "I'm offering, not begging. This is your call. Take what you want from me, as much or as little as you can handle." He raised an eyebrow. "As much as I want." "Yes," she whispered. "And what if I don't want anything? Then I'll take the loss. I made this bed. I'll lie in it. And what if I want it all? Then I'll make you happy every single day. I'll earn it. And what if it's somewhere in between?" She gave a sad smile. "Then I'll take that too. If I have to share you, I will. I won't like it. I'll be jealous. But you'll never see it. I had your heart, and I let it go. He nodded slowly. This isn't easy. I need space, but you'll be seeing more of me. She wrapped her arms around him. Her tears finally fell, but they were warm, grateful. Even if he didn't come back all the way, she'd still have a seat at his table. He called that evening. Dinner in 3 weeks, he said. A couple lunch dates before then. Things are a little hectic right now. The lunch dates were better than she imagined. 7 in total. 7 hours of laughter, flirtation, real connection. She didn't tell the kids. Not yet. The night of the big dinner came fast. Dress casual, he told her. I'm cooking. When she stepped into his apartment, the first thing she saw stopped her cold. The dining table, set for 6, just like old times. And as always, Tom had cleared the rest of the space afterward. Spotless, simple, comfortable, home. Exactly the way he used to do it for family dinners. Exactly the way he used to do it for her. Even after the kids moved out, Tom never stopped setting the dinner table for all of them. Every evening, he placed the cutlery just so, made sure each seat had a napkin, and acted like it was still a full house. He even set a spot for Tommy's fiancée, as if she'd already been folded into the family long ago. His ex-wife couldn't help but tease him. You're still setting the table for all of them? She laughed. Even for little Tommy's fiancée? Then her voice softened. Did you ever save a place for me? Before Tom could answer, the patio door slid open and in walked their son, 6'4", definitely not little anymore, with Julia at his side. Yes, Mom, Tommy said, answering for his dad. He always did, even when you weren't around. We made fun of him for it, but he wouldn't budge. Said, this is our family table. There's always a seat for your mother. Julia chuckled, trying to lighten the mood. So, if I leave him for a better guy, do I still get to eat here? Nope, came the blunt voice of James, the youngest. You gotta earn it. You want a seat, give us a grandson. Otherwise, either have a baby or become a widow. Tommy played along. Huh, a child or a widow? Tough choice. With a grin, he scooped Julia up and tossed her over his shoulder. She shrieked and kicked, laughing the whole way toward the stairs. They didn't get far. Drama ran in the family. Their daughter was already halfway down the staircase, arms flung wide. Hey, the whole gang's here. Their mother just shook her head. I love you all, really. But your dad and I had plans tonight, a date. What am I supposed to do with all of you here? Stealing his attention. Tom gave her a look, the kind that always meant trouble. You'll find out after dinner. They never made it to the formal place settings. Tom led everyone outside to the patio where he'd already fired up the grill. The air was warm, the wine was flowing, and the conversation came easy. They laughed like they used to, like the time apart had never happened. After dessert and coffee, Tom stood at the head of the table. I actually called this dinner for a reason, he said. Julia began to rise. Oh, I didn't mean to, he waved her off. You're sitting at the table. That means you're part of this. Then he looked at the kids. This past year was rough, he said. And it's not over, but it feels like time to stop waiting for things to go back. They won't. So, I want you all here for this. He turned his back to his ex-wife. Your mom told me she still loves me, that she never stopped. And yeah, she left. And yeah, that still hurts, but that's between us. When he turned back, he was holding a sealed manila envelope. I've written something, he said, handing it to her. It's for you. Open it when you mean it. Not before. The envelope was marked in his familiar handwriting. Open only when you really want it. No one noticed his hand slip into his pocket. No one until he stepped around the table, dropped to one knee, and looked up at her. No dramatic speech, no cheesy lines, just those calm, steady eyes and a soft voice. Come home, he said. Her answer was instant. Yes. There were hugs, laughter, and tears around the table. And for the first time in a long time, it felt like the family was whole again. That night, they didn't rush into bed. They curled up beside each other, hands entwined, kisses slow and quiet. Closeness came later. But that night was about returning. They remarried quietly just a few weeks later on a Wednesday evening at the same church where they'd first said, I do. Only the kids attended, but not before she opened the envelope and signed the prenup tucked inside. Agreement of terms. I, the undersigned, admit I love Tom Carnes with all my heart. If I violate our second marriage vows, I relinquish all rights to property, dignity, and body hair. I agree that upon betrayal, I will exit the house without clothes, bald, and hopping on one foot, while singing nursery rhymes and clucking like a chicken. I also agree to notify the local media and arrange live coverage of said exit. I acknowledge that this will never happen, which is exactly why I'm signing it. Because now, I understand what "till death do us part" really means. She wore white. Not for innocence, but because it felt like a clean page. A reset. He wore a new suit. Of course, he looked annoyingly incredible in it. She laughed, reading the contract. "This man," she said, signing it, "still knows how to land a punchline." "Do you promise?" he asked. "I promise." "Do you?" she asked back. "I do." And then they kissed. As for the honeymoon, that part stays off the record. But if anyone had seen it, they'd have believed in second chances too.